Hello there my fellow sim racers, this is Sim Racing Jason, and today I want to share my thoughts and opinions on the new Rennsport Open Beta build version 1.9. I want to start my look at the new Rennsport Open Beta build with a quick rundown of the content that's included. Starting with the tracks, there are 9 circuits available to all racers, which are of course all been laser scanned. Now bearing in mind that there is a modded circuit, which is a street circuit, and also there is the hill climb circuit, which is the Goodwood Festival Speed. Now you can purchase an extra track, which is the Nordschleife, the mighty Nordschleife circuit that we all know and love, but you need to purchase one of the founders packs to get that, and they start at about £15. On the car front, we have 14 cars to choose from. We've got a selection of GT3 machinery, TCRs, hypercars, and now with the new open beta build, GT4 cars. You can, if you buy one of the upper tier founders packs, get hold of a Porsche GT3 X car, but that didn't appeal to me, so I haven't chosen that particular option. Out of all the cars, I think the BMWs are the better cars to drive. They seem to handle better and sound better. I did particularly find the new BMW M4 GT4 a real fun car to throw around. I believe that's being one of the latest cars that's got all the latest physics and handling updates. There were a couple of cars that I really struggled with, and that was the Porsche Cup car and the Praga. For those two cars seemed a little bit unpredictable for me, and after initially trying them, I've never gone back to them. Okay, let's dive into the nuts and bolts of this sim racing title and take a good look at version 1.9 of Rennsport. Kicking things off with the graphics and how everything looked, and let's start with the circuits. And I thought the level of detail was outstanding, and because they're laser scan, we know that they've got pinpoint accuracy. And there's little touches as well, things like the dynamic flags around the track, all working and showing the relevant flag for the conditions. Then you've got the day-night transitions, which always adds a level of realism to the circuit. Now, it's not all good. On the high preset, my 3080 Ti graphics card was only getting about 80 FPS, and we do get the occasional stutter when the grid first pulls away from the line. Now, I'm not too sure how much can be done with that because it's using the Unreal Engine, and we all know from Kunos's ACC title what a resource hog this endgame engine can be. But it's not the end of the world. There's probably some more optimization and tweaking that can be done that should improve the FPS and make it more stable going forward. The biggest thing I did notice about the circuits was the somewhat muted colour palette. It all felt a little bit washed out, the circuits didn't pop, and I felt that the curbs and the trackside vegetation just felt a little bit flat, and it just left me feeling a bit underwhelmed. Now of course you don't notice a lot of this when you're in the heat of the battle, but hopefully it would be nice if they could just, I don't know, add a level of, I don't know, pizzazz to the circuits, make them feel more dynamic to the eye. That would be really great. Now for the cars themselves, well, they are absolutely beautiful. They are works of art, especially the new GT4 cars. I really like the way that the cars, show all the reflections of the circuit they go round, and I really like the front and rear lights, the way that they've got that soft bloom on them, and the interiors are pixel perfect. And to me, that's what's more important than some missing circuit detail, is the fact that those cockpits are so detailed, so correct, and they've just got the right aspect ratio, and it really helps with the level of immersion. And on that side of things, I think Rennsport have done a brilliant job. Let's move on to how Rennsport sounds. Now this is important to sim racers. One, because it gives us an idea of what the car is doing whilst out on track, and two, it helps to draw us into the sim racing experience, helps with the immersion aspect of sim racing, which is to me very important. And I did find that Rennsport was just a little bit lacking here. Now all the sounds and all the details are there with the engine, the tyres, the curbs, but what I found was there was no real depth to the sound. The sound range felt compressed into a narrow window, which meant that the sounds weren't really very well separated. Now, some cars are better than others. Again, the new M4 GT4, the BMW, was particularly good. I really thought that they captured the engine sound for that, and that did feel and sound more dynamic than others. And then you go to the other end of the scale and you had the Mercedes GT3, which felt totally flat and really just ruined the experience for me, so much so that I've never driven that car since. Now I know we've been spoilt with titles like Race Room that have such a rich depth of sound, but I'm hoping that, you know, as we move forward, that they can find a way to inject a bit more dynamics, you know, into the sound engine, and hopefully we can get a more immersive experience. Let's take a little look at force feedback. Now I know this can be a little bit subjective, and it is tricky to truly communicate how force feedback comes across because we've each got our own hardware setups. I run Acertech SimSport Direct Drive Wheel. Now I did find that there doesn't appear to be any native support for Acertech in Rennsport at the moment, but force feedback worked. I was able to set everything up, calibrate and bind everything, so it wasn't an issue from that point of view. I just found that it was a little bit grainy now and then, especially if you had something like a flat spotted tyre, but the force feedback was quick, clean, responsive. I knew what the cars were doing on track. I did find, especially with the TCR cars, that understeer you get on throttle application, the power understeer, that was really nicely represented. And in general, I just thought it was, you know, really good. Curbing, you knew the difference between a flat and a harsh curb, and because of the tracks are laser scanned, you get the little dips and the humps, and you felt the cars react as they went over those as well. So on the whole, I think the force feedback is very good, and I can't wait to see what it's going to be like when the title comes out, you know, fully. And Acertech and Rennsport have worked together to get native support, just to dial out that little bit of graininess here and there. I also want to share my thoughts on the physics and handling model of the cars. And for me, I found that the Rennsport cars did like to be driven with a little bit of slip angle as you went into corner entry. And it was quite easy to induce a little bit of that. You were just a little harsh on the steering input as on corner entry, and then as you went through the apex, you were able to control that slip angle with a little bit of throttle and steering input. And I thought it was quite enjoyable, and it did suit my particular driving style, and as a result I was fairly quick on most circuits with most cars. Now having said that, the GT3 cars can be a little bit unpredictable if you try and use some of the more aggressive curves. They do tend to unsettle the car to the point where it can unexpectedly spin out on you. But again, the GT4 cars were much more compliant. They were able to ride the curbs a lot better, but you have to watch the tyre temps in the GT4 cars. If you let the tyre temp go over the limit, then the cars tend to wash out and will understeer, which, you know, can be a little bit tricky. But one or two corners where you just back off slightly, the tyre temps do quickly come back under control, but it is something I did notice on the GT4 cars. Moving on to the TCR cars, and they've got that front wheel drive feeling just about nailed. You've got the power understeer, but I did find that the rear was a little bit too stable. It felt a little bit too planted, you know. Usually with a tin top, under heavy braking, with the weight transfer, the light rear end does tend to be a little bit skippy, and you can use the weight transfer, the fact that the rear end goes light, to help turn the car in on initial corner entry, but you haven't quite got that in Rennsport yet. So, you know, there is room to improve the physics all around. At the moment, I think the GT4 cars are the best handling cars in Rennsport, but that's probably because they're the newest and they've got the latest, you know, knowledge from the Rennsport development team. On the gameplay front, I think Rennsport have done a good job. Take the UI for example. Now I know it's functional and it is a little bit basic, but it works, it's easy to navigate, you don't find yourself getting lost. Now I did find that some of the graphics menus had a lot of sub menus, and with the steering wheel again there was a lot of sub menus that you had to work your way through. Hopefully that can be cleaned up and simplified in the future, but it does mean that there are plenty of options and you can tweak just about everything and anything on this sim racing title, which is a good thing, which is why we like PC sim racing. Now, up until now, there hasn't been much to do in Rennsport, apart from, you know, time trials, hot lapping and watching some of the esport events that they organise. Because it was on closed beta, there just wasn't the player base. But now in open beta, the player base has expanded to the point now where we can get involved in online events, and there are races going off at regular intervals with GT3s and GT4s. Shame there's no TCR online events yet, but I believe that they're on a weekly rotation, so let's see what the future brings. And thankfully, on the multiplayer side, the ping, the netcode all seem really good and robust, and I've had many a clean race, and it was, you know, really was very good. It's simple to get into a race, it doesn't take very long, and there is a basic form of incident points and driver ranking, so there is an incentive to race clean. The only drawback is the damage model is very limited, so some of the track rejoins from fellow racers can be a little bit interesting to say the least, because there isn't much of a penalty if you clip another car as you're trying to get back on track as quick as possible. Rennsport as of yet doesn't have any AI, and listen to what the devs have to say, I don't think that's going to come anytime soon. I think that's quite low down on the pecking order, but it's not the end of the world. iRacing didn't have AI for over a decade and it didn't seem to hold that sim racing title back. Thankfully, now we've come into open beta, the player base has expanded, you can get plenty of online racing action in, so there's plenty of value to be had from that side of this title. Yeah, I just hope moving forward that they brighten up the menus a little bit, speed them up in places, and just give the sim racing title just that little bit extra spit and polish. And I think that from a gameplay point of view, they've virtually got it right out of the box. So wrapping up my thoughts about Rennsport Open Beta version 1.9. Well, it's definitely the best build yet. They've been progressing. Each new build has got better and better. Each new piece of content is a step above what came before. So the title is moving in the right direction and bodes well for the future. Unfortunately, as good as Rennsport is, it doesn't have a standout feature. There's no USP for this title over any other sim racing title already out there on the PC. They've got some interesting ideas about incorporating modded content into a unified, front page, store page with official DLC, but then again, Kunos have hinted about that with their new Assetto Corsa Evolution coming later on in the year. The biggest thing that Rennsport has got going for it is it's a free-to-play title. So just jump over to the Epic Store, there'll be a link in the description, and try it out. The only thing you've got to lose is a bit of time, but I think you're going to get value out of it, especially with the enhanced player base now that it's gone into open beta. There's plenty of organised online races to take part in. They're easy to find, they go off at a set time, you know the track and car combination in advance so you can practice to get a good result. It's just that as interesting as Rennsport is, There's nothing to really make me want to recommend this over any other sim racing title that we currently have access to on the PC. But it's going to stay installed on my PC. I'm going to be checking it out, and I'm going to be watching the progress of this title with a keen eye to see what the future brings and what Rennsport can do for the sim racing market in the future. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to know in the comments, how do you feel about Rennsport? Do you agree? Do you disagree with me? Let's have a good old-fashioned debate. Let's have a bit of back and forth about it, and it's just let's try and get a broad spectrum of opinions on Rennsport as it currently stands in open beta. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my look at Rennsport. If you did, why not give me a thumbs up? Even better, consider subscribing. We've got some new content coming. I'm going to go back to my tin top roots with some mods for Assetto Corsa, and I'm still patiently waiting for that new AMS2 build to drop and those DTM Audis to become available. But in the meantime, thank you again for watching. Happy sim racing, and I'll see you out on track. Bye bye.